Hello and welcome to the Buy Sell Hold Spotlight presented by Sports Car Market Magazine. I'm Darren Roberge. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Also be sure to join in the conversation and share your thoughts by leaving us a comment below. Our guest today is Mike Marzano. He is partner at Mouse Motors. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me.
For those who may not know you, why don't you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background?
Yes, so I'm Mike Marzano. I am a partner here at Mouse Motors. We are a boutique dealership that I think is kind of founded from the hobby and turned into a real business. So that's kind of our rundown.
Oh boy, have you guys done some real stuff over there. But first off, at the top, the name Mouse Motors, very unusual for something that is along the lines of what you guys do. Why don't you elaborate on that and tell us where it came from?
Probably our most asked question, to be honest with you. It's actually our founder and partner. It's the name of his dog, which is a gigantic Prussia Canario dog. So complete opposite, but it's a good story. It turned into a great story. So I think we stuck with it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely. So give us the overall strategy of Mouse Motors and kind of run down the history of how you guys began.
Yeah. It's a pretty simple rule. I think we buy what we like. We're obviously in business to make money, but I think it's pretty important to us to know what we're selling. I think a lot of people run into a scenario where they think a car looks great and it might be it might look like an appealing buy. And oftentimes you might find out, and I've done this before many times, but you might find out that, you buy it, you live with it, and it's awful, or it's always broken, or it's not really what you expected. So we make a really good effort in making sure that people are really aware of what they're getting. And that's kind of how you find the great car. So you end up buying it, you drive it, you live with it for a little bit, and then you're like, this is actually a really special car. And I think it's something that you'd want to own. So that's kind of our motto.
Well, you guys have bought and sold some incredibly special stuff. We'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but when you're out in the marketplace, what kind of vehicles are you actively looking for?
I think back to the buying what we like thing, we're really looking for a car that you almost can't live without. I think a good example for ourselves is, we currently own a couple Singer Porsches. It was a car that we were always infatuated with looking at. And when we finally bought our first one, we were like, okay, we get this. Like, this makes a lot of sense. And I think that a lot of people are going to find this out. So, we bought the first one. We still own the first one. We've probably traded 4 or 5 of them since. And it's, it's just a really good example of, buying something, driving with it, living with it. And there's something that some cars have where it just clicks and it works. And that's one of them. So we try to stick to that rule. I think it's a very simple rule when it comes to collecting. And I think it really clicks when it happens for someone.
Well, you guys have definitely had some astonishing inventory over the time that you've been in business. I'll start right from the top. Alfa Tipo 33 Stradale. That's a vehicle that many people won't even see in their lifetime, and you guys had one go through your hands. How did you acquire that car? How did you go about buying and selling it? What's the general story around a car like that that's obviously so incredibly special?
That was a car that, it was sitting in a private collection that was in the States. And I think it was at the time one of 2 cars in the United States that actually belonged to my partner. So, when that car kind of started gaining popularity, or, I think kind of what we're talking about, the click happened for people, the valuation of it just didn't really make sense to keep. So we decided to bring it to market in what we thought was a quiet way. And that's, that didn't really happen. Ultimately it ended up with a really, really great collector in Europe. So it's, that's what happened.
And you guys have played with quite a few special McLarens too, F1s, things of that nature. Why don't you kind of talk about your history with that brand?
well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we kind of run the McLaren Chicago dealership. So we're very close and aligned with that brand. Um, I think we're big McLaren Formula One fans, and that kind of trickles down into the road car market. Um, you know, F1s don't really need an introduction. I think that a lot of people get those cars and the values and the increased interest is starting to make sense for people. Um, it's my kind of poster car. Even the generation before mine, it's been that poster child car. And I think it will forever be a great, great car. And I think eventually the best examples will probably pass the 250 GTO in value.
It's definitely the pinnacle of the collector car market for sure. Another incredibly special car, sort of from that general era that we're talking about here, is a Mercedes CLK GTR. How did you acquire that? Give us the story behind that car.
Yeah, that was a consignment sale that you know, it's a funny conversation that started with a friend and ultimately ended up with it actually went to another dealer, which we didn't originally know was going to happen. Um, and then quickly traded hands. And I think the story went, the guy actually got just an email blast from this other company and decided he wanted to buy it. And I actually ultimately met the new owner of the car, and again, kind of ended up with a great collector here in the States, a new collector, I should say. Pretty straightforward deal on that one.
And you guys get to experience these cars too. And one of these cars you currently have in inventory that has made you guys a bit of a cars and coffee legend, and also spread your lure across social media quite rapidly. You guys have a Pagani Zonda R. Again, where, who, what, when, where, why, how, and what is possessing you to take that car out and drive it around and enjoy it, aside from the obvious brilliance of that car?
That was another, I'd say, trial of kind of validating buying what we like. We've driven Pagani Huayras, we understand them. We've always thought that the Zonda was kind of the best, looking model Pagani. And we really, really like the early Paganis, and it's a little bit difficult to get those in the country and all that other stuff. So, this car came up, we thought it was a pretty fair deal and kind of an opportunity to test the waters and validate it. Ultimately we put a ton of money into bringing it up to date on service and all this other stuff. So got an opportunity to drive a very well sorted car, and kind of validated the theory behind it. I think there was a loose, goal of maybe putting that car on the road and making it road legal, like some of the other, I think they just did, or Lanzate just did with another Zonda Revolution. I don't know that we'll go that far with this one, but I can understand why someone would want to. It is a very, very special car.
Yeah, it certainly has provided some pretty solid marketing collateral for you too. Every time you guys post anything about that car, it seems like it goes crazy.
Yeah. It's definitely a popular one. I mean, people like it. People like the look. I mean, obviously the sound. We were able to track it a couple of weeks ago and definitely brought a crowd out. So it was very, very cool to see.
Sure, not something you see every day. So give us a rundown of what else is in your inventory right now.
Yeah, we've kind of been dealing with a lot of consignment stuff lately. I think we're going to likely be bringing a interesting lineup of cars. We've got another LFA Nürburgring. We might be bringing a McLaren Formula One car actually to market. And then there I call it regular stuff, but RS200 Cosworth, C1, C2 Vet, but really special examples that have almost no miles and never restored, and more of what we kind of try to look for.
I mean, you guys definitely play at the top end of the market. There's no question about that. But you do have a variety of other things in stock too. E30s and various BMWs, that type of stuff. Where do you kind of see the marketplace going overall from your perspective? I mean, you guys kind of have a wide range of things that you guys deal in.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately, just because, you can definitely see that this market is changing. I think, and I don't think this is a new trend by any means, but it seems like a lot of interest is going towards this resto mod market. Um, but in really, really quality cars. I think, people probably saw the Tuttle Porsche that was built before Quail. It's $1 million car that people get. And I touched on Singers earlier. Same kind of thing. A $70,000 964 that's turned into a $1 million car. One sold yesterday for 1.2. You know, it's it's turning into much more of that overall experience. Like, what car is going to make me feel good, drive good, or something that I really can't live without or want to drive. We we deal with a lot of cars that, again, people think are this great idea and it might look aesthetically cool and appealing and all that, and you end up getting it and you never want to drive it or you don't want to fix it. It ends up being kind of a pain. So
It seems that over the last several years, people have really been invested in the idea of 100-point restored cars and never touching things and trailering things everywhere. But I think the resto mod shift is kind of an indication that potentially people are much more interested in maybe using their cars now. Do you think that's a generational shift situation, or what do you think is contributing to that?
yeah, I think it's generational. I mean, I think you're seeing it in a lot of these younger collectors that have kind of, dare I call them, like social media collectors that have come up. They're buying these pretty expensive cars, LaFerrari P1, stuff like that, and they're using them. And I think that's you're going to continue to see that. I mean, there's even in the upper end of the market, you've got guys that are buying, or very young individual bought a McLaren F1 recently, and it's, he's using it. It's out there. It's fake news. So I think people are caring less about preserving a little bit more than we thought. But that's, that'll go a long way.
So do you think that that's primarily an indication of social media, or is it an example that maybe the pandemic created where people now have a different perspective on what they want to do with their lives, or what do you think is leading to that?
Probably a mix. I think the 2-year setback of a pandemic, that essentially wasted time for people, gave everyone a different perspective of, what am I doing? What am I saving this for? And why not use it before I'm too old to use it? So I'd say a mix, but it definitely has something to do with it.
Do you think that there's any kind of like time and place remaining where trailer queens and that type of thing still makes sense?
Not a ton. I mean, I was thinking about that recently for the Corvette world. It's always been a big thing to have all those seals and all these badges of, this, like you said, 100-point restored car, but what does it really mean in the end of it? It's going to be interesting to see how that stuff kind of plays out. I don't think it'll be as relevant moving forward.
Okay, Mike, you're a guy that's out in the world all the time doing all the car stuff with all the car people. So why don't you give us one car to buy, one car to sell, one car to hold in today's marketplace?
I am buying a McLaren 675 LT. I am selling the second gen or this latest gen Ford GT, and holding a McLaren P1.
This is across the board there. The Ford GTs were kind of the darlings of the marketplace for a while, but we've kind of heard a couple different people thinking at this point in time that maybe the heyday's over there. Those are fabulous cars to drive. They have the right look. They do a lot of stuff. What do you think is causing that shift?
Special cars for sure. But, when you look at the build quality, which, for what it is great. But for what it is, it's a $550,000 car. I don't think it's a $1 million car. I think there's too many of them. I don't think they're that special. It is a great driving experience, but it's not $1 million for me.
And you're picking the P1 over the LaFerrari or the Porsche?
Yes, all day. LaFerrari is the least favorite on our end. The P1 is our favorite. I think the 918 is, it's a little boring. It's too good. It's too refined. It works really well. It never breaks. Well, that's great. But it is too good. When you drive one, it's kind of like, waiting for the excitement of maybe not something to break, but something to go wrong. The P1 scares you enough to keep you on your toes. And it is for me, the funnest driving experience for all.
So why the 675 on the McLaren side?
That is probably the newest generation car that has been underappreciated for me. I think it's a car that if you haven't driven one, I think I highly recommend you to. It's kind of was the last hurrah to the initial generation of the new McLaren stuff. So it was the most refined. We've seen them with a lot of miles and have no problems, not the normal McLaren kind of issues. And it's the car that's going to get you P1 performance or near it for a fraction of the cost. And not a lot of people fully understand that yet. So highly recommend everyone give one a look.
Any final thoughts?
I mean, I think we covered it pretty good. I think we're looking at a rocky next couple of maybe years. I do think that great cars are going to continue to sell well. So people with great cars don't need to worry. But, if you're in that middle to lower end of the market, I think we're going to see some fairly sizable corrections.
Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. It'll be competitive for the best cars out there, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I would like to thank our guest, Mike Marzano, for joining us today. To learn anything more about what we discussed here, be sure to pick up the latest issue of Sports Car Market Magazine by visiting the link in the video description down below. As a reminder, if you enjoyed this content, please take a moment to like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay on top of future episodes. I'm Darren Roberge. Thank you for joining us on the Buy, Sell, Hold Spotlight.